Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be men and talk about masculinity and men's issues. I'm your host, Brian Crawl, and today I'm going to be talking to you about free will and willpower. But before I get started, could you just hit that like button for me? Thanks. So now that I've talked about both the slave class and its slave mentality, and the NPCs who have no consciousness, I'd like to talk about the shared root cause of both of these things, and that is a lack of willpower, and even free will, or any kind of will at all. Everyone is supposed to have certain human rights, such as the right to agency, that is, the right to choose things for yourself and not be coerced. This is seen as fundamental, because that freedom to choose what you do with yourself goes right along with the fundamentally important human quality that we believe makes us human and gives us our humanity. What is that quality? Free will. The ability to think and choose freely and independently. Again, free from coercion. This is what gives us our humanity and makes us human, because it shows that unique form of human consciousness that only we possess. And this is what gives us the ability to do things such as form a sense of self-identity and reality, to decide upon what our ideal lifestyle is and try to live accordingly to what we believe life ought to be, or in other words, to self-actualize, as we call it. And isn't that just what everyone wants? Everyone wants to be successful, doing whatever they choose to do in life that will help them to live the way they want to live. Everyone has some sort of goals, dreams, aspirations of some sort of ideal life that they wish to lead. And when you look out into the world, are most people out there being their best self and living their dreams? No. Most people are not doing that. They are not self-actualizing or achieving their goals and aspirations. Rather the opposite. They are staying stuck in a dead-end job that is menial work and part of a meaningless and mundane existence. Why is that? Because most people are missing something significant that one needs to have if you're going to make it very far. This is the thing that gives you the drive to push forward consistently for long periods of time, even when the going gets difficult or there is pushback. And that thing is willpower. The power of a strong will to do what one wants in life and persevere in spite of any adversity. For it is willpower that gives you the grit to do anything you may want to do. It is willpower that makes men successful in this very treacherous world, and can make them very powerful in it over time with enough of it. And this is why will has been considered spiritually the most sacred thing, because it is what gives us our independence and the power to self-actualize. Will is what gives the ability to decide your own destiny. But then, why aren't more people doing so? Well, because they simply do not have it. In fact, most people do not even come close to even beginning to have any willpower at all. Because not only do they not have that, but they do not have any will at all whatsoever. So, of course, they cannot have willpower if they do not have any will, which they would need in order to have the power of will. The prerequisite to having willpower is that you have some sort of free, independent will of your own with which to empower yourself. But wait. Isn't everyone supposed to be born with free will? Isn't that just a function of the human consciousness that is a big part of what makes us all human? Well, yeah, it is supposed to be, but does everyone really have free will? I just said that anyone with human consciousness should have it, but does everyone actually have the prerequisite level or quality of human consciousness needed to possess free will? And what qualifies as human consciousness? What is consciousness? What makes one conscious? What makes one human? All good questions. And while I have explored the topic of humanity in another video from my psychology channel linked below, let's just focus on consciousness here. Most people are conscious, at least in that they are aware of their own existence, because they are self-aware enough to think about themselves. So they have a name that they say when they're talking about themselves. You know, they have a body, they have a brain, they have thoughts and such. But how conscious are they really? Because if we were to delineate consciousness into various levels, most humans would place very low, just above animals. It turns out that their sense of self and identity are often superficial and meaningless, and oftentimes not even their own personal independent identity, but one that is heavily influenced or even programmed in, like an AI robot or NPC, as I've talked about before. And so without the development of higher consciousness, there can be no free will. For free will is a function of consciousness. More specifically, a function of the depth or quality or level of consciousness. The more conscious a person is, the more will that they will have. And the sad fact is that most people do not have free will at all because of the fact that they just do not possess enough consciousness for it. Though it does seem like they do have free will because they make decisions, right? They have opinions, they have preferences. All right, they think and talk, so they can tell you what they like and don't like, what they want and don't want. But does that really represent free will? Just being able to make choices when given options and say, I desire this but not that? No, not really, right? Because animals can do that, right? But that doesn't mean they have free will necessarily. What it really is that people have free won't. This means that they know what they really don't want. All right, but they are not independent free thinkers. They are under the influence or even the total mind control of others. And so they are never able to discover their will and figure out what it is their will to do in life. They do not have a sense of meaning or self-actualization in life, at least not real ones, as the Matrix does have some seemingly fulfilling illusions, and so people are socially conditioned and culturally programmed to believe that they have meaningful pursuits in life that we call success, right, and career paths and such, that we have been made to think we will feel emotionally fulfilled by, but which are just mechanisms of the system or matrix that we live in, meant to put us to work as worker bees. So that is why people generally do not have free will, even though they should, and only have free won't. So that though they may know what they definitely do not want in life, they do not know themselves fully and deeply enough to know what it is their will to do with their life. So while aversion may come naturally to them, the opposite things such as intention, passion, dedication, and such are not natural for them, as we men are now seeing among women who are getting the same sort of corporate drone programming that men have gotten since the beginning of the industrial age. And while it is important to know what you do not want in life and what you have an aversion to so that you never feel violated, and while you may be able to experience some sort of complacence or contentment with this type of existence, as many people do, it is not enough to have a happy and meaningful life. Are you sure to take your daily dose of red pills consistently so that you can stay out of the matrix? The red pill is a medicine that only works if you take it in the right dosage and never miss a dose. One missed dose of red pills can mean turning back into a blue-pilled limp dick simp under the sharp heel of the evil feminist matriarchy. So make sure you are subscribed and that your subscription is set to all so that you never have to miss one of your daily doses of the red pill, because I'm releasing hot new red pill content every single fucking day just to make sure you don't have to. So make sure you will actually get notified when they are released, because you know that YouTube doesn't want to show you things that don't align with its liberal leftist feminazi agenda, and it shadow bans content creators like me who use free speech to speak out against these politics and stand up for the rights of the oppressed masses of men like you and me. And if you want to help me keep fighting the good fight, please donate using the PayPal link below so that I can keep this work alive, because I simply cannot do it without the support of viewers like you. And be sure to spread these messages and share these videos with any other men you know who could use a nice big dose of red pills. The fact that most people do not have high enough levels of consciousness to have free will, willpower, or intention means two other key things that are also detrimental to us humans. For in order to have intention, humans need to have two other fundamental things. And what are they? The first is purpose. Of course, without a feeling of a life's purpose, you cannot have intentions that are in alignment with your purpose that will help you to live your life accordingly. The second thing is something that life purpose is dependent upon, which is a sense of self-identity. Most people do not have much of an idea of who they are whatsoever, and thus, without a sense of self, you cannot have intentions that will help you to be the person you feel you ought to. And both of these things, like intention, are also dependent upon consciousness. And the problem again is that most people are simply not conscious enough to have a sense of personal identity or a life purpose. And so they cannot have the intentions needed for free will, let alone willpower. So obviously, if someone doesn't even have a strong, solid sense of identity and self, they can't have free will. And then that leaves them open to being manipulated by others who do have these things and the power that comes from having free will. For when you pair up someone who has will with someone who doesn't, the person who has willpower can easily exert it over the one who does not and take advantage of them and coerce them, causing them to conform to their will. And this is what has happened with the masses of people who have no free will and thus are very disempowered, and the elite ruling class of people who we often call the powers that be, which we call that because they are the ones in power. And anytime you are feeling disempowered or oppressed, the first thing you need to do is find your will and center yourself in it. You may even need to rediscover it at times. For even those of us who have free will and willpower will find that these things can tend to fluctuate. What I have found is that you will not be able to rely upon their strength unless you actually use and exercise them, and that the more you use them, the stronger they get. And you will need that strength because much of society may be trying to take your free will away from you. And they may be successful unless you are actually making a conscious effort to do things such as thinking freely and doing things that require an exercise of willpower, such as facing your fears. That is what separates the men from the NPCs, or the women and children, or the animals. These are things that only fully conscious human men can do. As long as you are doing that with the power of will, you can be very successful in life. In fact, everyone who becomes rich and powerful seems to make it sound like it was all really about their drive and grit and perseverance, which is what I think is their attempt to basically sum up everything about willpower into one reductionistic little catchphrase, because NPCs love mottos and mantras and quotes and sayings like that, and that's who most of their audience is, right? Since that's what most people are. And since most people are just NPCs without free will, that means that when you do have willpower, you will be able to start to influence those who don't. And then you can start to really make a difference. Eventually, you will have others helping you, maybe even employees of your own that you have the power to delegate to. And that is when you will really begin to start making changes to your environment, just like the quote-unquote powers that be do. And it all comes from willpower. So find it and cultivate it within yourself and use it to drive yourself forward towards fulfilling your life purpose. And if the way that I'm speaking about will and consciousness and such seems very philosophical and even metaphysical to you, like it's almost a bit spiritual, mystical perhaps even, well, you aren't wrong. You see, some of what I'm saying was taught to me by a man named Ross Jeffries, a dark NLP-based hypnotist who teaches covert hypnosis for speed seduction, among other sorts of controversial things. And he was a teacher of mine for a while when I was at PUA, and he taught me everything that he knew, including a course on chaos magic, where he taught me about how most people don't have free will, only free won't. I wasn't the one who made up that phrase, unfortunately. Can't take credit for it. But the point is that this is why people can be easily influenced and persuaded with NLP and your intentions. And many spiritual teachers out there often speak of intentions almost like they are an energy or have a sort of energy or a force behind them. I use the word drive, which is a synonym for it. And also in the magical tradition of famed occultist and religious scholar Aleister Crowley, he set forth the premise that one's will is the center of one's reality, and what gives one the magical ability to create their reality. And that is why will is the most important and powerful thing to the magician in this tradition, and that fulfilling one's true will is the whole of one's spiritual law that they ought to live by, because the concept of will to him was metaphysically synonymous with the concept of purpose. In fact, it was so significant and sacred to him that his creed for his entire magical system, temple, and organization or religion was built upon it, and the motto or mantra that "do what thou wilt" shall be the whole of the law, meaning that one's entire existence revolves around doing what one feels willed to do, for in doing so, one fulfills one's spiritual life purpose, or something like that. I don't know for sure because I'm not him, and he was a crazy man, but these concepts and themes are ones that we have seen appear in most spiritual traditions, often in other more elucidated forms. Now, many New Age spiritual teachers have sort of taken this idea and ran with it and just gone off the deep end with a lot of delusional, magical thinking, like with the so-called law of attraction, how if you focus on what you want, you can manifest it. You can literally will money into existence and be magically mailed checks and such, which is all obviously insane, and anyone who believes that needs a serious reality check. And it is very important to stay grounded in reality when you are thinking spiritually and not get caught in the trap of religious, culty, magical, or delusional thinking. And I don't believe in magic or fairy tales. However, I do know that we live in a slave class where most of us have been manipulated out of our free will by an elite, powerful ruling class, and that we have basically had our potential taken from us to make them rich and successful. Their power has to come from somewhere, and it's us. It's because we relinquish it to them, whether consciously or unconsciously. And often it's unconsciously, for they know that taking it from us in that way means we are less apt to put up a fight. And so they have engineered this entire socio-political paradigm and set of social programs for the systemic brainwashing of the masses to turn them all into obedient NPC slaves without independent free thought. And so what they have produced here are whole armies of drone-like worker bees acting as mindless slaves who have no consciousness themselves, and so they are very compliant and basically just do as they are told. But it is your job as a conscious human being to rise above that lower paradigm and exercise your will to attain higher consciousness and do more than just being a mechanical cog in the machine. That is your human right. And without that, you are nothing. So be your own man. Find yourself, empower yourself, and use your free will and willpower to go your own way, men.
That concludes this video. Thanks for listening. I hope I mansplained that good enough for you. If you like what you heard, please click the like button. And if you feel you gained some value from this video and would like to give some back, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support helps fund me doing this work and fight the good fight for men like you. If you are ready to take the red pill and wake up from the matrix, well then, I have the perfect book for you. The Bible of Esoteric Knowledge is a super concise, dense, info-packed philosophy textbook written in the same verse format as the Bible, but combining multiple different highly esoteric philosophies such as Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, shamanism, ancient paganism, and a special balance between theoretical physics and metaphysics, along with some special bonus info on the cryptic secrets of sexuality and death. This book will stimulate your intellectual philosopher's mind like no other, especially since it's a lot shorter and easier to read than most philosophy books made up entirely of run-on sentences and never-ending paragraphs, and, can be quite boring and exhaustive. Full of all the most fascinating mystical secrets of the universe, gratify your inner geek and quench your thirst for meaning with the Bible of Esoteric Knowledge. Get your copy at the link below for a special sale price today. Enlightenment has never been so easy.